someone who can send some love to. Honestly, I want to check if Sully is on already. Okay.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Oh, I can hear myself. Sorry. Welcome to the Six Figure Developer Channel. We are doing a bit of live coding today. We have with us special guest Rob Richardson. He's going to help us put Speakermeet into a Kubernetes cluster. If you're not familiar, and maybe that's a good place to start, is no. Yep. This so Speakermeet is a little project that we started a while ago with the idea that there was what was the organization that used to help out with speaker conferences and INETA, I believe, used to help with connecting speakers and conferences and user groups and help with a little bit of the travel costs and things like that. So around the time that they disbanded, we started working on this idea of maybe filling that void with something that would help put together speakers and communities and such, and really never made much progress on it. And then it just became kind of a test bed for software development practices, for teaching, for testing, for playing with code. So it is a React front-end site with a .NET 5 backend. It's been upgraded to .NET 5, utilizing a lot of the technologies in Azure. It's hosted in Azure. We use Azure static websites for some of the image hosting for the images of speakers, conferences, and user groups, using Azure Cognitive Search for the fuzzy search stuff. So even when you spell names wrong, they come up with somewhat proper results that you would expect. Let's see what else. Azure SQL is in there. We've got blob storage is where some of the items are stored. Application insights. All of the code is out on GitHub. And so if anybody is interested in following along, there is a UI repository that has all of the React components in it, the React site, and then an API repo that has all of the .NET 5 assets in it. Last week, we started going through. So Rob had been on the podcast a while ago and mentioned his love of Kubernetes and that type of thing. And backstage, we were kind of chatting that the three of us kind of have a varied experience in Kubernetes. Ash probably spends the most time in it and has the most knowledge of the three of us. I know enough to get myself into a lot of trouble, and Clayton is confused by the whole ecosystem and need or want or desire for it.
I'm just here for moral support today.
And we appreciate you for it. So last stream, we started trying to just get all of the Docker files updated. The API project already had a couple of Docker files in it and Docker Compose. There's some integration and end-to-end testing in some of these as well, so that when we run the project, it'll go through some of the testing scenarios as well for us. And then spin up and run for us there. The UI project, the React project, did not yet. We will let Rob in. The UI project did not yet have a Docker container or Docker Compose project in it, or file in it. We tried that last stream and failed. I was able to complete that the next day or two afterwards. But Rob, after being a guest on the podcast, actually put in a PR for getting things set up and configured for getting everything working together in a Kubernetes cluster.
Do you remember? Well, just curious. You can skip it if you think it's too much. But just what was the recap or what were we doing wrong?
Where we failed miserably.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah, so just a brief recap of the whole thing. For Docker composing in the API project, really what we did was the right click on the API project, and you won't be able to see all of this, sorry. Add container orchestration support comes out on the right off screen. Sorry about that. And that really got us most of the way there for that. In the UI React project, Clayton found us Control-Shift-P, add Docker files to workspace, and then you can choose, do you want to create Docker Compose files? And we did all that. The biggest problem that I had is that for my machine, I changed my local environment file to run the React project on 3001, but it was exposing 3000. And so once we even got it to run, it was immediately failing and closing out because it didn't have anything on there. The other thing that I ran into is this line here, TTY true. I don't know why. It was something on the internet. Somebody told me to do that, or someone told somebody else, and I saw that that worked for them in what I was experiencing by doing Docker Compose up build. It was immediately failing without this line.
So we pretty much got the Docker file right, but the Docker Compose was...
Yeah, the port and this line here was our failing.
So did you change your local environment settings, or okay?
Yeah, I did. Since 3000 is kind of the standard port for those Node, JavaScript, React applications, figured that if this was being checked in, and it is now merged into master, then that probably makes the most sense.
I'm not familiar with the TTY true either. That's interesting.
Yeah, there was another option. They said you could do either one of these. I tried them both. They did both work. This is the one that I left in. I don't know
that
why.
Works.
But
yeah.
But what the three of us had discussed last week after the failure of getting it to work at all was that Clayton and Ash were very much, let's dive in, and you're gonna have to dive in and learn the guts of it and make sure you figure it all out and make sure it works and find out why it's not working. And my reaction was, or I can just find somebody that has a Create React app project out there that is running in Docker and look for their blog posts, and that's what I did.
Yeah,
because I'm kind of a just-in-time knowledge person, and just high level enough that I know kind of the basics of what's happening here. If I need that level of detail, I'll dive into it. So now it
the
is
interesting
running.
thing about this Docker file and Docker Compose file is it's great for development, but the moment that we try and take this container and run it on Kubernetes, it'll probably burn us.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm really interested to hear about. How have we painted ourselves into a corner here, and what are the pain points that we're likely to experience?
Well, the cool thing is because we've decided that Kubernetes is kind of our deployment mechanism of choice, then we can start to experiment a little bit there and really hone in on that as a mechanism. Our goal is to create really good Docker files and Kubernetes YAML files that will allow us to run it in production.
Okay.
As it's set up right now in both sides, it's really kind of geared towards development, and that's fine, but it feels like we're not really using it that way. Maybe we're using that to get some dependencies, but probably not. So I think we can start to abandon the development in a container experience and move straight towards the production runtime experience because we're debugging in a different way.
Okay. Yeah, right now the two pieces, the UI React app and the API, are deployed separately from their GitHub repos into two different app instances in Azure.
Azure Web Apps?
Yes.
Cool.
But, as Speakermeet is kind of a tool for learning different things, there's no reason why we can't just throw that idea out the window and switch everything over to Kubernetes, or at least explore that path and see where it takes us.
That's really interesting. In development, we probably have Webpack Dev Server that is able to proxy the content between the UI and the API because they're running on different domains. One is running on localhost 3000 and one is running on localhost 5001. And that's cool, but in production, we probably have a really similar scenario. We're running on two different web apps. So, one is mysite.com and one is api.mysite.com, for example. I'm not sure what the particular thing is, but we don't have that proxying between. If we flip over to the API project and look at the API, oh, apparently I'm not connected to that one yet.
Yep.
Let me try reconnecting. The API probably has a lot of details around CORS headers to try and facilitate that, where we're doing a whole lot of let this go into the other domain. CORS headers are actually a really cool mechanism inside browsers that kind of speaks towards security, kind of. The cool and annoying part is that as we go to connect to from one domain to another domain, the browser will intercept that AJAX request and it'll say, are you sure you want to go to this other domain? And in the process of doing that, the other domain can say, I won't accept cross-domain requests from this other domain. It'll return that CORS header that says, here are the domains that I will accept requests from. And so right here we have app.useCORS allow all, which basically means, yep, you're fine.
Yep. Developer.
Yeah. And so we have that complexity here of having to set up the CORS header. And then in the React app, we have to have the domain of the other place, which is going to differ per environment. And so that's interesting, but that's a level of complexity that is kind of annoying. One of the things that's really elegant about Kubernetes is you can put in a Kubernetes ingress that can proxy between two different services based on the path. So we can say, oh, this is mysite.com, send it to the React app. Or this is mysite.com/API, send that to the backend. And so it becomes the reverse proxy in front of both pieces that pushes the content from one to the other. The cool part there is from the browser's perspective, there's no CORS going on. It's going to the same domain. It has no idea that it's switching between containers. So it makes it kind of a simpler solve there. That Kubernetes ingress controller allows us to create that mechanism where two containers sit behind a single domain. Mm-hmm. So in the end, once we're done, we'll probably have a simpler architecture here. In the shortest term, though, we probably need to unpaint ourselves out of some things.
Okay. Yeah, and I've got we're on your branch here in the API project, or solution, rather.
Oh, cool. So the first stop is probably the Docker file. Let's pull up the Docker file in the API project and take a look at how that looks. In Visual Studio, it looks at the first line of the Docker file and it says, this is the base container that I'm going to use as I debug things. So in this case, it says blah, 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 blah as base. And so if we want the Visual Studio debugging experience, that's going to be really helpful. If we don't care about that, then we can kind of simplify this and remove some complexity there. I didn't do a whole lot here because, it works. But then where we start on line 8 is where we really start into the building up the production container. And this is using a multi-stage build. It's actually using 4 different stages. It probably doesn't need 4, but it has 4, and that's fine. Where it does .NET build, copying in all of the CS proj things before it does a .NET restore. That allows the Docker layers to work really well. Each command here, by the way, in a Docker file, creates a different layer. And layers are cached in Docker. So the cool thing here is that on line 14, it's going to do a .NET restore. And that .NET Restore is going to restore all the NuGet packages. Now, if we change a C# file, we don't necessarily need to restore the NuGet packages. So we copy in just the bare minimum that we need, all of the manifest files, all of the CS_proj files and the solution file, so that when we .NET Restore, it will cache all of those NuGet packages and we won't need to do that again. Then on line 15, we copy in everything and we do the final build, which is pretty cool. So once we're done with the .NET build, we'll do a .NET publish. This is really similar to a right-click publish inside of Visual Studio, except for in this case, we're doing it programmatically. And so we get to that publish location, so /app/publish. Inside there is all of the files that we would copy to IIS or to Apache or wherever we needed to host these. And then we say on line 22, from base as final, so here's the final thing that we're building up, go grab all of those files from the source location and copy them into place. That's cool. At the end of line 24, we've got all the production content, and because we chose the ASP.NET container on line 3, then we don't have a whole lot of complexity. We don't have the build tools, we don't have our source code, so this is perfect. I did notice that on line 29 it says wait, and I had trouble with that. I couldn't get the other dependencies to run, and in production in Kubernetes we're not really doing things like, you know, waiting for the other thing to start. We're just kind of firing up and doing the thing. And so we may choose to remove that if we're going to remove the debug experience. I left it for now just because, you know, it's not hurting anything.
Yep.
But the other reason that we may choose to remove that is that Buster Slim is small, but Alpine is smaller still. So if we flip over to an Alpine image, we no longer have apt-get. We have to use a different mechanism to pull in that dependency.
Okay.
So all in all, I think this Docker file kind of gets it done, and that's pretty sweet. We could definitely tune this, but I think we're doing pretty good here.
Okay.
The Docker go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the reason for the weights are the current purpose for the Docker Compose and Docker files is to spin everything up and run the end-to-end tests,
right,
which require that the database be up and running, the website be up and running and serving. So we're having to wait for the database to have been built and populated and all that stuff. So
and that's actually really elegant. Let's flip over to the Docker Compose file and look exactly at that, because it's really sweet. This Docker Compose file is the one that we would use in production to go kick up all the things. And it has the details of what Docker file we need. On line 6 to 8, we talk about where is the Docker file, what folder should we build it in. Now we are building inside the root directory. We're not building inside the app directory. And the benefit of doing this is that we have access to the other projects that we need. We saw in the Docker file, everything was /source/blah instead of just, /blah. And that's totally fine, because now we get access to the entire solution. Wherever we kick off that build context, it can see from there in and no farther. So that's perfect. It depends on database and Redis. So we see those two images down below, DB and Redis, and then the test one that depends on all three. Depends on is interesting because it says, I kind of want the other things to be started, but just started, not necessarily running successfully. And so that's where wait was perfect, where it would just sit there going, are you done yet? Are you done yet? No? Okay, I'm not going to start yet. Are you done yet? And so that was really cool. So from here, you could kind of say Docker Compose up, and it would get all the things running. And I say kind of because, well, there's a lot of environment variables that we need to set to get SQL Server to run, to get ASP.NET to run. And we had some of those set, but not all of them. A lot of them were set inside the Docker Compose override YAML. And so that's where Visual Studio will automatically apply this file over the top, which is really elegant. Here's all of those configuration details about how I should wait and what's my SA password. And I love the resources section where it says, but you don't really need a huge machine. You can do a pretty small machine to be able to pull off this part. So if we're doing this in development, having this file layer over the top of the Docker Compose file is really helpful. When we're going into Kubernetes, we won't have either of these. So yeah, we'll need to take note of all these things. We'll need to carefully set the wait before hosts, and we'll need to set the SA password, or even better, we'll have a connection string that we pass into our container and light it up that way.
Okay.
So this was cool to be able to kind of review all of the pieces that we had for development. So what of these will we use in production? The Docker file is really good for the backend, so I think we'll use that verbatim, and we'll build up the image from here and get at the content that we need. We may need to trim out the run, and so we could create a dockerfile.debug or dockerfile.override or something like that that had all of the development experience. And then inside our Docker compose.override, we could specify that other Docker file to use when building and debug.
Okay.
On the front end, we have a little bit different story. On the front end right now, the container that we have, the Docker file, it does an npm start, which is perfect in development. We do want to have a Webpack dev server running all the time. But in production, we probably want to do an npm build and produce the final assets that we want to publish into the container. So this is a great dockerfile.debug. This isn't a great dockerfile.production, for lack of a better term. But it has all of the pieces. And I love that we're using Node Alpine here. That's really cool.
We'll switch over to yours here.
Yeah. So here's a mechanism of being able to do all the pieces. And we do have a multi-stage build here. So starting on line 13, that's kind of the production runtime. And ending on line 10, that's the build server. In the build server, we copy package.json, we npm install, we copy the rest of the things. We did that on the server side so that we could cache those layers, and that's really cool. And then the final piece is npm run build. Now, it isn't obvious where that build directory will end up. I believe it is /src/dist, but we can verify that as we get closer.
Okay.
And then we spin up a new container that's just using Nginx Alpine, because it's just static hosting at that point. And so at that point, I just copy in an nginx.conf that tells it, hey, you're hosting content, and serve index.html if you don't have a matching file. And then I copy all the content on line 18 from the other stage. Now, if we just said copy like we did up on line 5, it would copy from the host system. But instead on line 18, we said copy -- from equals build. So we can go looking for the word build elsewhere in our statement, or elsewhere in our file. And we see that on line 1, where it says from Node Alpine as build. So we've named that top section build. And there's nothing magic about build. I just thought build was a convenient name. And so it will copy the content then from the output on line 10 into place in this Nginx Alpine server. And that's cool. It's just totally static files. At that point, when we spin it up, it just goes, oh, okay, I need to reach out to that static server, or I just need to host these static files. The cool part here, Node isn't running, Node isn't even installed. And so we've reduced our attack surface.
Okay.
One of the things that I didn't...
Putting it behind the ingress will also reduce the attack surface.
Yeah, exactly. Ingress will take all of the random things and go, nope, that wasn't port 80. One of the things that we had in the other system that we don't have here, I highlight here on line 9, we have .env files that give us all of the environment variables that we need to set, like what is the URL of the other guy. the other system, and I'm not sure if we have secrets in there, so we probably don't want to pull it up. But we probably need a mechanism to inject the correct environment variables into place before we run that. Right now, it looks like they are really cool variables that will get injected by Azure DevOps, and that is really, really cool. So if that's the case, we could get Azure DevOps to rewrite this file, and by the time the Docker file build kicks off, then all of these secrets are in place, and then we just pull that into place like a normal file there on line 8, and we've got all of the secrets in place.
Okay.
The other cool thing, though, in that .env file, if we're really going to put the ingress in front, we can start to get rid of some of these URLs, because like the API URL is /. It's on the same domain, and that's pretty cool.
Okay.
So in the regular branch, we had a Docker Compose file, and Docker Compose is really helpful for spinning up local things.
Mm-hmm.
As we get closer to Kubernetes, we're probably going to walk away from the Docker Compose file because we'll use Kubernetes for that instead.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that a K8s YAML was created in your branch as well.
Yeah. Here's the list of Kubernetes resources that we'll need. The way you do Kubernetes is you'll have an ingress in front, and ingress will take the brunt of the traffic from a public URL. And based on the ingress, I believe it's at the bottom of the file, it will pick which URLs it wants to go to. So here it's going to say, I've got 2 different paths. If the path has /API, then send it to the Speakermeet API service. And if the path doesn't have API, then send it to the Speakermeet UI service. The cool part then is that will forward to a service. So starting there on line 26, this is the Speakermeet UI service. And that's the load balancer across all of the instances of this container. So that just says, hey, I'm listening on port 80. I want to forward to port 80. In this case, it's of type node port, which gives us a little bit more access while we're experimenting. In time, we'll probably want to flip it over to type cluster IP that will be much more private. But for now, type node port works just fine.
Okay.
That will load balance across all of the instances of the container. So scroll up a smidge more, and we'll get to see the deployment. Here's the deployment, and starting on line 10 is the template that says, here's the definition of the pod that I want to build for you. A Kubernetes pod is just a wrapper around the container that gives it a network boundary and gives it a little bit of isolation and some other interesting things. So that template says, here's the container that I want to build. So on line 17, it says, well, I'm going to happen to name this container Speakermeet UI. That isn't anything special. But then on line 18, we talk about where is this container. So we probably have a few secrets there. We have ACR URL and image label. We'll probably want to rewrite these with Azure DevOps or GitHub Actions so that we can pull it from our Azure Container Registry and version it based on the build number or the Git hash or whatever we want to specify there.
Okay.
And so the ingress will point to the service will point to the pod, and the pod is inside this template section of the deployment. Here on line 6, it specifies the number of containers it should run. In this case, 2. So if we were to fire this up, it would run 2 instances of the front end pod. In front of that would be the front end service. And in front of that would be the ingress that would accept the traffic.
Okay.
So there's this on the front end, and there's a similar K8s YAML on the back end that will specify the details for the back end piece. It's nearly identical in that we've identified the service and the service and the deployment. We don't need a second ingress though, so I think I left it off here.
They were just they weren't. Excuse me.
They weren't in the solution yet. Good call. K8s.yaml. So here's that Speakermeet API, and I tried to inject all the environment variables that we might need, cloning those from the other piece. Now we do have an app settings.json that probably includes username and password and things like that. But if we inject them as environment variables instead, then we can do some really interesting things like setting them differently in production and never having these secrets in our source code at all. The only secrets would be, the dev safe ones, which pretty much mean localhost.
You don't like that password?
I think that password is awesome.
Super secret.
Yeah. One of the
Especially now
things
that
that's
it's
interesting
JavaScript.
here, see there on line 26, how we have the double underscore?
Mhm.
We can pop open the app settings.json or the app settings.local.json and see how it's connection strings, and inside that is Speakermeet. If we use an underscore, then it will specify exactly that spot inside the configuration. So no matter what we have in the app settings.json, we'll override it here with this environment variable.
So Ward is asking, how could the variables be injected differently than app settings?
Ooh, good call. We can put them here as environment variables, and because of the way that ASP.NET starts up, it first grabs the app settings, and then it grabs the app settings dot whatever environment we're in, and then it grabs environment variables, and then it grabs parameters that are passed into the command line to start it. And it'll layer all of those together, kind of squash them into a sandwich, and use that as its final configuration. In this case, because we're choosing to override these as environment variables, then whatever's in the app settings file is ignored because these ones take precedence.
Yeah, I was going to see is you sort of get a feel for that we've got the app settings and then environment.
Right.
Sort of. Yeah, similar concept there, I think.
And I think if we get a newer base template, then all of that is done for us. It looks like in this template, we're only pulling in the JSON file. So we'll have to do a .add environment variables to get it to pull in the environment variables if we really wanted to go this direction. Alternatively, we just carefully set the secrets into app settings.json and call it good.
Yeah, just for everyone's sanity, this is not the real connection string info for what is running in Azure.
Exactly.
Aw.
And that leads us nicely into the K8s-dependencies.yaml. Here in the back end, we had a Docker compose file that spun up SQL Server and Redis and some other things. And so how would we get those things running inside Kubernetes so that we could consume them if we wanted to debug locally? Now, we'll probably not go this way, but here's that file that is similar. In this case, I didn't need a deployment because I didn't need more than one. So I just have a pod that spins up SQL Server latest. And I accept the EULA and I set the password, and the password needs to be sufficiently complex. I hit a nice error there for a while. And so then we'll have a service in front of it that will load balance across all one instances. Similar thing for Redis. We have a pod and a service for Redis. So if we wanted to run all of this locally in Kubernetes, we could first start up the K8s dependencies.yaml, get SQL Server and Redis going, and then start up K8s.yaml, get the backend going, and then start up the front end's K8s.yaml and get the front end going on top of that.
I'm kind of interested in doing that without knowing how much pain I'm asking to inflict on myself.
Yes. The one thing that I couldn't get going was the SQL Server container, because it didn't occur to me until quite a bit later that I needed a password that was sufficiently complex, and I needed to set some other environment variable, and I forget what the particulars were.
So you're saying you're not interested in going through that pain?
Oh, I think it would be awesome. let's go figure out what I got wrong.
Okay. So, gosh, I'm gonna have to spray. Excuse me. So, where would be a good place to start? I've got a command.
Let's do that. Let's do a kubectl config get dash contexts, and let's see if you're in the correct Kubernetes cluster.
I think that's what you said.
Get dash contexts.
Get dash context. One word.
And it's one word and it's plural.
And then enter.
Yeah. Cool. We're in Docker Desktop. So we can definitely do this.
All right.
One of the things you may need to do is add more resources to Docker Desktop. Are you using WSL2
I am.
with Docker Desktop?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Problem solved.
So another thing we have, we're using ingress. Do we need an ingress controller set up?
The ingress controller is actually built into Kubernetes. And so in theory, it's already there. In practice, yeah, maybe so.
Okay. It's new to me.
Yeah.
Is that as of a certain version, or do you know?
The ingress controller is the thing that knows how to spin up ingresses.
Okay.
And so you generally have one per cluster, and it's kind of managed by the cluster itself.
It's probably as of Tuesday. I mean, Kubernetes land moves so fast, or at least it did. Any other items we want to take a look at in Docker Desktop?
Nope. You've got the two things that we need right there. Use the WSL2 based engine, which makes it so much more elegant. It is so cool. And then you clicked on the Kubernetes tab and you saw that Kubernetes was running. So we're good.
Okay. Yep. All right. And because I like to live dangerously, here's the command prompt.
Awesome. So now type in rm minus. No, I'm just kidding.
Format.
Do a kubectl get all, and that'll show us that nothing is running right now. Cool. When I was first learning Kubernetes, I'm like, can I delete that one too? And I actually did. And that's the service that we communicate with when we're doing commands like kubectl get all. So of course, Kubernetes went, wait a minute, I have a problem. And it spun it back up.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool. Let's do a kubectl apply -f K8s dependencies.yaml.
Enter.
Yeah. Cool. It created a pod. It created a service. It created another pod, another service. kubectl get all. It's probably doing a whole lot of pulling containers. Nope. It did it. Awesome. So now we've got Redis running on port 6379, and we've got SQL Server running on port 1433. But as part of the node port, we also got it running on 30983 that we can communicate from outside the cluster. So if we want to, we can use SQL Management Studio or Azure Data Studio or a plugin into VS Code to be able to go explore that database and validate that it's up.
Is it SQL Server? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have Management Studio on this machine. Sorry.
Yeah. Azure Data Studio is actually a fork of VS Code geared towards databases, and it is so cool because it is such a lightweight, wonderful doohickey in the same way that VS Code is. It's really sweet.
Okay. And now we can connect to, I'm assuming, that port.
Yeah.
Is it
the
local?
1433 is the one exposed inside the cluster, And that one is the one exposed outside the cluster.
SQL login.
What was the password that you added? This one?
Yeah.
Sure. We're all about security here.
Yeah. Every time we run this, we'll get a different node port. So the bummer part about saving your password there is next time you do this, it'll be a different port and it'll prompt you for the password again.
It failed.
Oh, I bet I know what I failed. Pull up K8s dependencies.yaml.
Oh, in here? Yep.
Oh, no, I did fix it. The typo that I had, the reason I couldn't get it going, and this is so hilarious. In the service on line 28 and 29, it says, here are the pods that I load balance across. So any pod that has these labels are the ones that I load balance to. So on line 5 and line 6 are the labels that have for this pod, meaning that this service should load balance across them. I had left off line 5 and line 6, which is why my SQL Server never spun up.
Nice.
Yeah.
It is just comma port number.
It is.
Let's just, yeah, sure. Oh, is it S?
Yes, it's SA. That's a part of the. It's a part of the Docker image.
I'll type just because sometimes pasting gets funky.
Yeah.
It's a Unicode character.
Yeah. My fingers don't really work, so I screw that up.
Don't use your dead thumb.
We'll say yes again. Sure.
Oh, there it is.
Connected.
Ooh, nice. So now we can confidently see that we have absolutely no databases that we can use to connect our API to.
Hooray. There is not an API service.
No, we just spun up the dependencies.
The dependencies.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
So now we probably need to play in a SQL file that will go create the database. And
It should be EF Core 5 should do that. I do have ensure
Okay.
created in startup.
nice.
Yep. So it should do that, and I do have some data in our infrastructure project. Yep. So we do have some a sample community, sample conference, and a sample speaker.
Ooh, cool. Problem solved.
Okay. So I'm gonna go on a wild guess here, go out on a limb guess, and say we need to do this, that.
Yes, let's do it and see why it fails.
Yes,
It was created.
Yep.
that's good. Image pool. So
This is really cool. So Speakermeet API, it says image pull backoff. Let's do a kubectl
Oh.
describe pod/that.
It's because we didn't. There's not a thing. Describe pods slash
And then Speakermeet -API -84 blah 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 blah.
8, 4, 6, 5, 6, 7 BB C6. Yeah.
There appears to be text on the screen.
Here it says the container that it's looking for is.
Yeah. So I'm assuming this is you plugged in Azure Container Registry URL. Is
Yes.
that what? Okay. So it doesn't know where to find that image.
Right.
Okay.
We haven't built it yet.
Gotcha.
Let's go build it. And this is what's really cool is of how Docker as a build tool integrates really well with Kubernetes as a run tool.
Okay. Too bad they're removing support for Docker in Kubernetes. Is that?
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, it would affect that part, right?
Let me share with you this article that has the coolest
Clickbait
graphic.
Oh.
Yeah, my understanding
I just
was
pasted it in chat.
my understanding was that they were no longer going to be running Docker as part of the Kubernetes engine. That it would still you could still run images, you could still run Docker containers, but it wasn't going to run using Docker.
Right.
So wouldn't that inhibit the whole build thing?
The cool part is Docker as a build system is perfect. At the end of the day, Docker will create OCI compliant images. Open Container Initiative. Right. Open Container Initiative says, if I want a container, I want it to look kind of like this. And Kubernetes can run OCI containers. But what it does today is it runs those containers through a little shim. Keep scrolling down and there's a really cool graphic. Yep, it's still alive. Keep going down.
Right. We can run the Docker containers using Kubernetes.
Right.
But you wouldn't be able to build the Docker images using Kubernetes if they're removing.
Which isn't
right. They're just removing Docker
that's
shim.
correct.
It's going to run.
That isn't something you do, Clayton.
Okay. Well, I was just
Generally speaking. Yeah,
that's what it sounded like we were suggesting we were going to do, is have Kubernetes use Docker to build the images.
No.
Okay.
We'll use Docker as a build tool, and we'll use that completely separately from Kubernetes as a run tool.
Okay.
What they're deprecating is right now Kubernetes makes API calls into Docker, and Docker makes APIs into Containerd. And that's cool and all, but Docker is so much more than a container runtime. It's a container building environment, it's a registry, it's all of these different pieces. And so as a runtime, Kubernetes isn't using very much of it. So why doesn't Kubernetes just call directly into Containerd? That's all. Now, if we were using Docker CLI commands to administer Kubernetes, this would be impactful to us. But we aren't, so yeah, we'll be totally fine.
And thank you for the follow. Is that Gbone1? I'm sorry. Thank you for the follow. Let us know how to pronounce that properly.
Yeah. So we'll still use Docker to build our images, and then we'll use Kubernetes to run them. We just won't tell Kubernetes to call Docker to run them. We'll tell Kubernetes to call Containerd to run them.
All right, so back to our original problem.
Right.
Do we care about this line? Do we need to concern ourselves with that? Or is it just if we build it, it'll find it?
If we build it and we name it that, it will find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
may choose to modify
thing?
this. I'm sorry?
Do we name it this whole highlighted area?
We do.
Okay. I'm sorry, you were going to say?
We may want to change that name to be, something simpler for now. Maybe, or maybe we just leave it. But as we get closer to production, we'll probably want to swap in our actual Azure Container Registry URL.
So what am I building? Docker build source Docker.
I think you could
file.
even just do a Docker tag of the one that you already built if you wanted to, but we can do that again. The build.
Does that look? Or you said tag it?
No. Go ahead
I'm
and
sorry.
do it this way. This is fine.
Does that look right?
It does not. It's really
It does
close
not.
though.
I think you need a.
We'll say Docker build, and then after build and before the source, we'll say -f, and that says where is the Docker
That's
file?
where the file
well,
is, yeah.
it's right
Gotcha.
here. And then after the Docker file, before the other one, we'll say -t to give it a tag. And then at the very, very end, we'll give it a dot, which is the thing that
that's
I always forget. It's like, well, what is this dot? This dot is the current build context that we'll hand to Docker, and we'll say, this is where you should start.
Which. Okay, yeah. Looks right.
Yeah.
I'm thoroughly enjoying Clayton's face.
I'm just watching.
Ooh, what?
No, I've done
He's
Docker
like, wow,
build.
this guy's
It's all the
wrong.
Kubernetes stuff I don't understand.
Yeah.
So what I was suggesting as well, while we're building this, which is a different Docker file, I think, than you had built previously,
Yes.
which is sort of why it kept back. But you could have just done a Docker tag if you had already built this
tagged
one,
the
and then
existing
tagged
one.
the existing build with
Gotcha.
this new.
Right.
Assuming that his build had the ACR URL on it. Because that's not part of a tag, that's the
No,
image
that,
name.
that actually is just it works.
It's just a name tag, so we can build the image, and then we can name it whatever we want.
Yeah.
So what was really cool about that is we could have taken the old image and just put this label on it, this name tag on it.
Yeah.
Okay, I've
that's
only
what I
ever
think
used
that's what I was
tag to
saying.
do the after the colon.
Right.
Yeah, and Chad, if anybody watching has any questions or wants us to slow down or zoom in or anything, just let us know.
Oh, wait, I had to wait for him to ask for it.
What? Who? What?
I was zooming in.
Oh. Okay, so we successfully did stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. You shouldn't need to apply it again, right?
But
Let's
yeah,
do a
because it
get all
failed
and see if
last time we did.
Kubernetes noticed. In the crash loop back off, sometimes it goes, yeah, but I'm going to give up.
So we could just kill those pods, and then it would try to apply them if you didn't want to do a whole other apply.
Exactly.
So this is what I'm confused on.
So that's the service that's sort of load balancing between those two pods.
Not the
Is it-
pod itself.
Not the pod itself. The
Right.
pod itself is basically said, oh, it's completed.
0,
But what-
1.
Yeah. And then the other one's like, well, I failed too many times, so I'm going to stop retrying.
Crash
So what we
loop
could
back
do
off.
is we could kill those two pods, and then Kubernetes would be like, oh, those two pods died. I need to spin them back up. And it would try to re-pull that image this time once you try to kill them back up. So you could do a kube control delete, and then what I would do is just copy and paste. But
Do I need pod? I don't need
just
pod.
the whole thing. Yeah, just
The whole
copy
thing.
that whole line, and then
It'll
delete the
spin up
pod
with the new
section.
name.
Oh yeah, you don't want to have pod twice. Sorry,
Okay.
my bad.
No problem. See how I know just enough to get myself into a lot of trouble.
And I bet you that one already will start working.
Yep.
Running. Yep.
And so you could do the same thing to the completed one, delete it. and
What is
then-
complete? I remember reading about a lot of the. Well, now it failed. It failed.
No, so actually it completed. So, which is a different state. Which is not supposed. Your API is probably not supposed to complete. But
Correct.
basically, it basically resolved
my
in a
thing.
non-error way.
Let's do a kubectl logs and then pod/blah. This is not that different from Docker logs, where we're looking at the console output for this particular pod.
This one.
I bet what we're going to see is that wait said, it wasn't found. I stopped. Ooh,
no,
no.
it failed on Entity Framework. Trying to create the database, maybe. DB 1433 is available. Initialize the context. Login failed because
Oh, you have a different.
I have a different password
Yeah.
than you do. because of the complexity. This is now our password. Where does that?
Yeah, that K8s YAML.
go?
Inside K8s.yaml, we're injecting in a connection string, and we're injecting in that connection string. That's why it says
This
DB.
one. Gotcha.
Right.
So that should be that. Kill that. Okay, save that.
So now you need to do apply.
Is it running? No, we're good. Okay, so now
Doesn't matter.
this one. Unchanged.
So the service never changed, but the deployment was
Gotcha.
configured. Yep.
Terminating. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so that's
'Cause
killing
two
all
are
the other
running.
pods. Yep, those two are running. So now you can, yes, celebration.
Are they? Do we
You
have
probably
a
wanna do
port
a Docker
exposed for
logs.
it yet?
We do. Flip back to kubectl get all and look in the service section. We see service/speakermeet-api. Nodes of type node port, so we have 2 ports there. We have the cluster IP port, which we can't get to, and we have the node port, which we can get to.
Aha.
Yep.
Fancy. It is
Yeah.
all working. Clayton,
So what we've shown here is that the SQL Server pod is working correctly, the Redis pod is working correctly, and the API pod is working correctly, and all of the services in front of those are correctly load balancing in front of those pods.
I believe you.
I say our backend is running correctly. That's cool.
Yeah, actually,
So-
I didn't. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just didn't confirm that it's Redis is working.
I presumed a database call would also be a Redis call. I was incorrect.
Yeah. So that tried to hit Redis. Featured. Yeah, it's failing on Redis.
What's our connection string to Redis?
Or just Redis 16 or 6379.
What's the label that we're using on the service? Is it Redis as well?
Yeah, service/Redis.
Okay.
That's unexpected. Do we need to create a database inside Redis or initialize it in some way to get it to start accepting keys and values?
Nope.
I wouldn't think so either.
Is Redis a node port as well, or no?
It is not a node port, it's a cluster IP, but we could flip it over to a node port so that we could connect to it from outside and validate that it's running. Let's do that. Go into K8s-dependencies.yaml. And let's scroll down to the service for Redis.
And under spec, you're going to have to add type. Yep. It doesn't have the selector.
It's not in a pod.
Oh,
That's the pod definition. Let's scroll down a little bit further. Well, first
There
let's
it
take
is.
that line
Yeah,
out.
All right.
And then let's scroll down to line 52.
cluster IP. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now I'm understanding. Port, target port, target port.
You know that mistake I made with SQL Server?
Again?
I did it again.
Okay, no problem. You said it, and I don't remember what it was. TCP protocol
Pod that needs labels, correct?
On line 53 and 54, it says, I'm going to load balance across all of them that have the app Redis labels on them. And here on line 38, we don't have a section that says labels.
Yeah.
labels. I don't.
It's 2 spaces.
YAML, you jerks.
And if there's a tab on the next line, that would bite us too.
You know what?
John, are you not using smart tabs?
Yeah, this is the part where I'm like, will you stop helping me?
Got it.
My tools are sometimes oh so helpful.
So now we just need to reapply that. Yep.
Right.
And you'll see that the other things didn't change, only the Redis pod configuration.
Right.
Well, we also changed the service because it became a node port.
So do the API pods need to restart to be able to hit it, or will it just kind of work?
It'll just work.
It should just work. If they create a new connection each time, then that'll be perfect. If they create one connection on startup, then we would need to restart them.
Yeah, no, it worked.
Nice.
Yeah, you may actually want to change that. I mean, just for change the service back to a cluster IP, because generally speaking, you don't want them to be node ports, but it's a good thing to debug.
Is that right?
Yeah. And we'll probably also want to change our SQL Server one back to cluster IP as well. I had it on node port while we were debugging it, in case we needed to create some additional SQL or whatever we needed to do. But yeah, now it'll, similarly in a Docker compose file, we could say ports 8000:8000, which would expose it publicly, or just ports 8000, which would not. And so
Redis is invalid ports.
You broke it.
Service DB is invalid. So I changed this to cluster IP. And
we may need to delete the services and recreate them, because they have a node port assigned right now.
All right. What is the easiest way to do that? Because it took me longer than I would like to
If you
admit
do a
last night.
get
doing
all.
this.
So yeah, kube control get all, and then do a kube control delete, and then just copy those and paste that after the kube control delete.
That,
in my opinion, but
sadly,
Rob, you have a better.
That's a great way when you just want to delete everything that's there. If you want to delete like everything in a file, you can say kubectl delete -f and pass in the file, and it will delete everything in the file, which in this case will also be SQL Server and its service too.
I like the nuclear option.
So when you do that, it's going to, because of the way that your API, you go for it, but what you'll see is because of the way your API is designed.
Oh, I'm doing it to the API too.
Your API will need to do that again.
Oh, I'm doing it.
The API creates a database on startup, and so you have to have that API go through that startup process again.
That's fine. I'm all right with that.
Which you could still kill. You don't actually have to delete it this
Too
way.
late.
You could just kill the pods and it would start up again.
Too late? No.
Yeah. Is there a star.star option?
There's also a delete all. So if you really just wanted to delete everything, you could kube control delete all, and then open parentheses -all, and that literally deletes everything.
Yeah,
so.
that one. It's from Orbit.
Oh, whatever.
It's the only way to be
Usually
sure.
at the point where I'm doing that, I also do a kubectl delete namespace, because that will just nuke
Yes, there you
everything
go.
in the namespace.
There you go.
Get all. That's right.
Which we've kind of ignored namespace, which is I think a totally fine thing to do. We're just working in the default namespace right now. Yeah,
Right.
and that's a good
Broke it.
thing to. But it is something to kind of call out to people.
Says it's
depending
running,
on what
doesn't
they're
it?
running.
That's cool. We broke it.
Hooray.
If we compare what we got last time it gave us node port 31354.
I was
And
getting
this
there.
time it gave us a different node port.
I was getting there. I got it. All right. Featured will hit cache and
Let's make sure these
database.
things all work.
Ta-da. Cache and database and not exposing ports and things.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool.
In time, we'll turn off that node port too, but it was really nice to be able to validate that the API was running.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say was, wait, could you validate Redis as well, John?
Yeah, it did. I did.
Okay. Okay,
Featured hits database and Redis.
Okay. Gotcha. So what I was going to say was right now we're not going through the ingress yet. We're just going directly
Correct.
to the pod
Right.
via the node port.
Yeah, we're going to the service and the service goes to the pod, but we don't have the ingress in front of either one yet.
Okay.
This is awesome so far. Clayton, I don't know if you know what's going on.
Nope. I could have done this 20 minutes ago or an hour ago with a Docker Compose and been happy.
And that works great for dev.
And that's all I
Doesn't
do.
work great for run.
So then my question becomes, something else needs to happen here then, right? To actually serve it.
Right.
Okay. So do we want to do that before introducing ingress or?
Yeah, sure. What's really cool about this Nginx container is that typically we need to do that CMD to be able to launch the thing. And the Nginx container has that already built in. So it just reads the nginx.conf and it knows how to host everything. Inside the nginx.conf, it says, well, where are all the files? And they just happen to be in user share nginx HTML.
Okay.
We do need to set the variables inside the .env file to match the
mine
details
are in
inside of our cluster.
Mine are in local. I'm not going to open it on screen, but the values are. I mean, they're named this and then the real values.
Oh, cool.
I'm not terribly concerned. If we need to show them, I can change.
Yeah. Well, let's definitely not. Let's pop open the .docker ignore file and talk about how we can ensure that those secrets don't end up in the container. This file talks about everything that won't get copied into the container no matter what.
Okay.
And there's .env.local. So in spite of the fact that it is in the folder, and we did say copy .env.local will not end up in the container at all. That's cool.
So this is a lot like a git ignore, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And it works similarly.
Will it be used in the build?
It will. It'll be
Okay.
used in the Docker build.
Okay.
So let's pop open the .env file, and let's hack up that .env file to match what we need it to be here in our local container, or here in our local Kubernetes cluster. Let's pretend we're the build.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So yeah, we'll probably set Insight's telemetry key to blank so that it'll turn it off. But the other ones we can, discuss short name is
doesn't
blank.
matter.
Yeah.
This actually
App
doesn't
images?
matter. I've got a thing it'll show something else, so it doesn't matter.
So
Actually,
while we don't have we're not going through the ingress, would we just put the node using like the URLs using the node port?
Yeah, we could do that.
actually, let me.
Although we wouldn't know the
Modify
port
our
ahead of time, would
local.
we? For the
Right, we wouldn't.
Let me just modify the local off screen, and then we won't have to worry about it.
That's cool. Do you have a second VS Code?
He's
No,
got
we
a
got-
34,000 inch widescreen.
Ah,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Do you guys not run like multiple instances of VS Code? That's usually I have like 30 up at.
Yeah, but they're all for
Yeah,
different
too.
projects. I don't run the same project in multiple instances.
Yeah, my instances of VS Code are usually like Chrome tabs. So
All right, so env local will be used. Gotcha.
cool.
yeah, so what would the URL for the
Yes, I'm sure. Just do it. Thank you. What?
the app? Because we know what the API is, right? But
Yeah.
what would the
This one doesn't. Let me double check.
matter? I mean, you can get it from itself, so.
Ooh, Notepad.
Only the
That's
best.
cool. Notepad is the best notepad of them all, except for VI.
So this doesn't matter. Really, the only one that matters is the second one.
Although I love the XKD, which is like real devs use butterfly wings. Because like, I don't know if you've seen that, but they like bounce the cosmic rays off butterfly wings, then like physically it goes through all of the atmosphere and whatnot, and physically alters the bits on the hard drive, right?
That's cool.
Okay.
Do we need a trailing slash, or do we need to not have a trailing slash?
No trailing slash. Okay. And then just
Cool.
build it.
Except for .env.local is specifically ignored in our setup, so we probably need to copy that into .env too.
Oh.
Pretending that we're the build.
Sure. Well, now we got to bring it out on screen, Ash. Jeez, man.
I sent it to everyone. Good old Emacs and VMwares.
I'm pretty sure I still have a Vim session open on the computer lab at school.
You couldn't figure out how
On
to
the
close
Vax?
it. You just walked away.
Yeah. All right. Well, whatever.
Cool, let's
okay.
push save here and go back and Docker build.
Docker build F. Oh. Actually, it doesn't matter. It's just there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Period.
We're using the default in this case.
Okay. Might have wanted to check what the name was.
What
That's right.
name was?
Whatever's in K8s YAML.
Whatever.
Because otherwise it's going to have the same problem we had. But
I don't know what you're saying, but
no, it's all right.
We'll
We'll just
figure it
run
out.
into the problem and we'll figure it out.
I too.
Yeah, the cool part here is because we didn't tag it as we built it, we get to tag after the fact. So we get to
Oh,
experience that
That's what you were saying.
process. That's cool.
Yep.
Gotcha.
That works.
See, we're learning here how to.
It's all part of your master plan.
Yep.
Yeah. The other thing we're going to learn is when you click on a console app, it stops the console.
Is that
So
what
right click and then it'll start up again.
I notice from time to time that it does pause and then it just hits something, but I didn't realize it was when you click on it. That's annoying.
You didn't know it was your fault?
I mean, I figured it was my fault, but I was like, I don't know why.
I don't know why my tools are failing me. I'm not quite sure whose fault it is.
Oh, I know. It's always John's fault when my tools fail.
Looks like a front end app so far.
Right.
But zero vulnerabilities.
Run npm fund. Yep.
You should add that to your build.
The npm fund.
Yeah, just to display it all, for the logs.
So how's everybody's night?
It's all right. Had a failure putting together my son's RC car.
Good.
I don't know what they're called. The little arms that go from the rotating part of the rear diff over to the wheel that actually drive the wheel on the RC car. The ones I ordered are too long, so I have to order shorter ones. But I don't know how short.
The axle?
Axle might be the right term.
Okay.
I don't. Is it the actual drive piece or is it?
It's
like
the
the
part that
A-arm?
connects to the wheel.
In the center, right?
Yeah, that spins the wheel. Yeah. Axle's probably the right
Okay.
word.
Axle would be correct.
It's been a long year.
That's fine.
Yeah, good thing March is almost over.
Right.
Yeah, Surly Dev, one of the people that watches us and apparently every other Twitch user, he was telling F. Bucheros, Frank. He was telling Frank that this was the last time that the Surly bots would be on his channel for the rest of the year. And I was like, oh, dang, we're that close that like Surly's going to go on vacation and come back and it'll be the next year. 2020 is almost over.
I gave him grief for that though, and so I think he's gonna have them running on. He's gonna leave them running on a Raspberry Pi because he's going on holiday and he won't have his laptop or something.
Does he got a Pi cluster going? We're running
Maybe.
the Surly bots in Kubernetes.
They're gonna become sentient. Oh, that doesn't. Well,
I love that
gotta
we
grab
have
the
lots
whole
of time to chat because we're restoring node modules, this huge mammoth piece of tech.
oh no, no such file.
509 files unpacked. Oh, that's down there at the
Ooh.
bottom.
I got something wrong in my build file. That's cool.
You had said that you thought it was source dist,
Yeah.
so maybe it's not quite that.
What's fun is now we get to do it again until we figure it out.
Right.
Yeah. Let's
Run
open
npm
that
build local and see where it
image
goes.
and see what it is. So do a Docker run -it, which is interactive terminal. I'm not sure that's the actual thing.
Just
Or
that.
just
And
run it.
then 151762, the image that it just finished.
3099.
5. This one.
Yeah.
Oh, ash bang dope is not
And then
a
space
command.
bash.
Oh,
Why not?
Oh, actually sh because we're in Alpine.
yep.
And now we're inside that source directory.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we're inside the source directory of the other container. I was wrong.
You want the one right before it.
See, this is where I use the Docker tools in Visual
Actually,
Studio.
Up even further.
Yeah. Scroll up a smidge more. It's that one. 00DE, that one.
There you go. Yep.
This one. Okay. Yeah, but Clayton, now we get to say we're hackers.
No, it does the same thing. You just get to right click and say connect to terminal.
Ooh, we have a build directory that we didn't have before. CD into build, and let's see what's in there.
Dist folder. Nope, it's all the
Nice.
stuff.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
Instead of dist.
It's in
Build.
/build.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is it in source?
Yeah. He started in source. And
It's
then
not my source. It's the
Roger.
container
Yeah.
source.
No. All good. Because
It's
there's a
this source, not this source.
Yep. I'm tracking.
That pile of
it
snow
built.
has had almost nobody land in it all night.
Now we need to take this name and tag that, and somebody's going to tell me what to type to do that.
Docker tag. And then we want to specify the thing that it is right now. So that one. Yep. Paste that. And then space, and then that. Yeah.
Nobody can copy and paste like me. And
Now
then
do a Docker image list, and I bet we'll see the two that we built pretty close to the top. Yeah. So there's the UI and there's the API. Now what's interesting is that one that says none in between them. You know, in our multi-stage build, how we build this thing and we have the node thing and it does all that and it does the source build and it ends up, and then
it
we
leaves all that
create another from.
Yeah.
That none is the other one.
Yep. And there's the other none.
and it leaves all that craft behind.
Yeah. So that 617 megs, we don't need that. We can throw
And
that
the
away.
one below is 1.5 gigs as well.
Yeah.
It's a terabyte
Docker is
drive, it's
not
fine.
kind to your hard drive.
Yeah, a Docker system pruned the other day and cleared up like 24 gigs.
Yes.
Now I'm going to guess that we cube CTL apply K8s YAML.
Right.
Is that safe?
Almost. Dash F, K8s YAML.
That.
Yeah.
Why can't it just say that dash F is implied?
Why can't it just say the dot is implied? I mean,
Because
Speakermeet UI is
so
invalid.
you can run it from not dot, right? Dot is basically saying this directory I'm running from.
right. Have you ever
You
heard of
just have to
default
supply.
parameters?
Okay,
It's
so
barfing because in the YAML on line 47, I made an assumption. As we get closer to AKS, we'll want to give it an official URL. For now, we probably want to delete line 47 and put a dash in front of line 48. And then a space, and then take out 2 spaces before it. Because YAML. Yeah.
there. Now do I
Which
do
is fantastic.
format anything
Everyone
else?
can say.
Yeah. Control Shift F. Wreck your world.
Yes.
No, thank you.
CTL get all.
I've actually been pretty impressed with Visual Studio Code and editing YAML. I think that does a pretty decent job at finding those little tiny things.
Yeah.
And it got a thing.
There's a stuff.
Doing a thing. Search will break, but that's okay because it didn't work locally anyway. This is amazing. Look, all of the things, they just worked. I'm so happy.
Now, in this case, we're not going through the ingress yet, but rather we're going to each service separately. So we go to localhost 30074 and go straight from that service into those pods. And then when the browser wants to hit the API, it uses cores to reach out into the other service and the other pods.
Yep.
The bummer part is Ingress doesn't show in a kubectl get all for some reason. So do kubectl get all, comma ing, and then we'll get oh, no
Comma.
space, sorry.
Comma. Really this time.
Yes.
Sorry. Get all, comma something.
ing.
ing.
Or you could just spell out ingress. There's our ingress. Nice. And it's listening on port 80. So try going to localhost :80.
It shouldn't do that. Wait. It's still going.
It either worked or it's broken.
Oh, bummer.
No, that's broken.
It's broken.
Yeah.
Ingress is known to not work on local Docker desktop or Minikube. And so I'm going to call this roughly a success in spite of the fact that Ingress isn't working. Once we get to AKS, then we can definitely take Ingress out for a spin.
Yeah, no, this is... Yeah. This is awesome.
So I've gotten it working when I've run my own controller.
So
Oh, cool. Yeah, maybe we don't have a Ingress controller loaded.
well,
Yeah.
would you not expose 443 for Ingress as well? I know like sometimes .NET apps really don't like port 80.
Well, the cool part about it is that
Or is it being port forwarded to 443 on the other side?
Yeah, so what you're getting at Ingress is not a Node app, right? It's just a Nginx. So and then the stuff is being forwarded to the Node app in the service. So
Right.
it
And
doesn't matter.
But it's
Generally
piping
speaking,
80 to 443 on the UI side then, or it should be anyway.
It certainly could be. So generally speaking, what we end up doing a lot of times is actually doing the reverse, where we're piping 443 to port 80. So internally, we're running all of our apps just into HTTP at 80 inside of Kubernetes. But then we're letting the SSL resolve at the ingress.
Or well, okay.
Yeah.
So the Speakermeet and API look like they're on 80. So
Yeah.
if it's
So I think
Internally.
Yeah.
Of their own pod. Of the
Right.
service is listening.
let's pop open the backend K8s.yaml and take a look at how it's mapping all the things. Right there on line 24, we're saying, here's the URL that you should listen on. And so we're specifically saying, I really, really, really want you to listen on port 80 and only HTTP.
yeah. And at least from the
Then
node
on
port that
line
was all
20
working.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would just say at least from the node port that was all working because we were able to connect via the node
Right.
port, extra port, and that all worked. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be that issue. It wouldn't be that the app is rejecting because of the protocol.
Right. There on line 20 is where we say to Kubernetes, I would like the container to receive content on port 80. And then the service is load balancing in front of it. So scroll down a smidge and we'll see there where it says port and target port on line 50 and 51. So in spite of the fact that .NET wants to run on port 5000, we've said, no, really, I really, really want you to run on port 80 and all the things instead. And so I agree. Oftentimes I'll get Ingress to listen on both 443 and 80, and then forward into port 80 all the way through the rest of the cluster. Otherwise, you have to talk about certs and trust chains, and that gets hairy. It's about that point where I go, hey, Service Mesh, can you just like solve that?
Yeah, where's our cloud architect that'll handle all that for us?
I Googled it real fast, and it looks like, yes, Ingress controller is not enabled on Docker desktop by default.
Ah.
Bummer. You're right.
So turn that on.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a pretty simple. It's not that simple. It's not overly complex, but it. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got about.
Presuming the Stack Overflow answer is right, here's the command that we need to run to kick it off.
Well, of course it is.
Stack Overflow is always right.
Oh yeah, copy paste development. Follows, fails, make John Skeet solve it for us.
Or have John Skeet tell you how wrong you are. And he's the nicest person to do it too. He has told me I'm wrong before on like what this is. You missed right there. Thank you. You're right. I did. And we've got about 20 minutes before we usually call it a night. So if we can wrap this up, then
yeah, I think we should
might be a good place to call it for the evening. And Rob, if you wanted to come back and help us throw this into Azure, we certainly would love to have you. If you're sick of us jokers, then no one would blame you.
This was a lot of fun. I want to do it some more.
Okay.
Let's definitely jump back in.
Okay. So, and we learned from the Bald Bearded Builders Twitch stream, Michael Jolly's Twitch stream, that junior devs select copy and paste code from the question, and senior devs copy and paste from the answer. So we scroll down to the answer.
Scroll up a smidge, and it's right there. Enable ingress. Run this command. kubectl apply that.
That's what I'm doing. Oh,
it doesn't like you.
Bummer.
404.
URL is no longer available. What's the other one too?
Let's try that one.
Same thing.
Oh no.
John Skeet was wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
How
Good
old is this
grief,
answer?
is this one of Skeet's?
Say it's not so.
No, it's not one of Skeet's, so it's fine.
Oh, it's a year old, so it's like 20 years behind in,
yeah,
in
it's-
Kubernetes speak.
Yeah, it probably is a story. What I've used is a Helm deploy, but that's probably not a can of worms you want to open up. But
Hey, look, Wes just joined us in chat. Yes, John is a new father. Rob has helped us get Speakermeet running in all of the things
Well, in Kubernetes anyway.
in Kubernetes locally on my podcast machine. We've got 2 instances of the API and 2 instances of the UI, 1 instance of Redis and 1 instance of the database. And I can't. How do you switch tabs? I can't see the tabs.
Shift
there we
Shift
go.
tab,
See?
Alt tab,
See?
or Control
Look,
tab.
Look,
Something like
look.
that.
All of this is local in Kubernetes. That's why it's the 3rd happiest day of my life.
I just Googled it real fast, just wandered through their repository, and I think I might have a new URL for applying ingress in Docker Desktop.
Where are we? Where am I?
Oh, geez.
oh, that one that you put in
What?
the
Oh,
chat,
another chat. Sorry.
the last one.
Just plug that. Just do that.
Yeah. No,
Oh.
no.
No.
Plug that do kube control apply -f, and then
That's actually the raw file. Or that's the file. So visit that URL and then click on raw, and then kubectl apply that where it's like raw.githubusercontent.com / whatever.
gotcha. Yeah.
Because this will be the
Oh yeah.
the GitHub page with all of the Chrome around it and stuff. Yeah.
Wes is going back to Cyberpunk now. Thanks for
Yeah,
stopping
now
by,
do-
Wes.
Now do get all, yeah. So you should have a new
Looks the same to me.
Do kubectl get all -ing and then space -- all - namespaces.
This is the really, really, I mean it, all of them.
So now we have an ingress. We scrolled down.
It's all gone.
I was trying to make
There we
it
go.
somewhat readable, but man, it just fails.
Now we have an ingress Nginx namespace.
Alt enter.
And inside that namespace, we now have more stuff. So that's what I was after, was the ingress dash Nginx namespace. So let's do a kubectl get all dash n for namespace, and then space ingress dash Nginx.
I'm
And that'll limit us to a little bit less of all.
What am I doing again? I got sidetracked.
You can do a kube control dash n,
There we
and
go.
then
My thumb's about had it too.
it's an Nginx dash ingress, I believe.
I think it's ingress
N.
dash Nginx, but let
Or
me
is it?
double check.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, ingress dash Nginx.
Ingress.
Is that how do you? Is that
ingress.
ing ingress?
Yep.
Oh, I
Dash.
thought you said dash Nginx engine and in inx. Gotcha.
Base dash
And then
all.
get all. Oh.
Get all. All.
I think it's
Get
just get all.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Hey, look, there's
Cool.
ingresses and things.
There is
We
stuff.
have an ingress controller that is running. Nice.
Does it do anything?
Yeah,
You know,
you can
if I do
actually log it.
localhost
So
to
if
80.
you, yeah, it might work. But if you do a log of the deployment or the pod, that is the controller pod. So you can do kube control log, and then just type in or just select the deployment apps Nginx controller and paste that in. Or you yeah, that whole section.
Wait,
Under-
what?
So you see where it says right under deployment dot
This one.
apps.
Gotcha.
Yep. And then it'll pick the right pod and it'll begin logging. Maybe it's not.
I think we have logs
Logs.
instead of log.
Yeah, that's correct. What it says.
It said.
Okay, try
We
it.
got dot apps, so it's just deployment slash. Sometimes it gets a little bit grumpy about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
other
I know the
option
other thing we need to do. We need to do dash n.
Oh yes.
Dash n ingress dash Nginx.
Okay, sorry. This, and then ingress
Yep.
Nginx.
It's like some
Yeah.
strange arcane spell that we've got to figure out.
So one of the things is one of the reasons why I had you do that first is you can always up arrow and then go back and change the command, but then you're setting your namespace first. So I always try to do like kube control dash n and specifying my namespace and then whatever command I'm doing, so I can just up arrow and change those commands rapidly.
That's a cool
But-
shortcut. I love it.
But yeah, no, that just a little. It looks like
Ignoring ingress. Me too, buddy. Me too.
what's going on here.
Huh? What?
It looks like it's there. Do we need to kill and reload the
Yeah,
our
probably.
ingress to get the ingress controller to find it?
Do it.
Probably.
I
Yeah.
don't know what that means. but
Yeah.
we'll do it. What do I kill?
kubectl get all dash ing. And then kubectl delete space and then copy that ingress slash blah. Yeah. Cool. kubectl apply dash f K8s dot YAML.
So this is
And now it'll put everything back and it'll say, oh, look, these other three things are totally fine. So I'll just do the new one.
okay.
Back 8 seconds. Seems legit. Still doesn't work, but it's cool.
So one thing that if we go back to the if you do a kube control -n ingress -nginx and then do just do a space get all for a second, and then that'll give us then arrow up and change that get all to logs, but do a logs -f and then space and then the ingress controller, the deployment dot yep, copy and paste that. You could also copy and paste the pod, but this is sort of the pods change all the time, so now it's not going out. So if we go back to the URL and try to hit that again, we should see that traffic coming here if it's working properly.
That's a cool trick. I didn't realize you could get at all of the pods logs by asking the deployment for its logs.
Yeah, it works well if you have only a single pod. If you have multiple pods, which is really one of the benefits of Kubernetes, it will pick one, but you don't have any control over which one it's picking.
Oops.
But it is nice if you only have one that you're working with, right? And you're trying to debug what's going on. If you're killing pods and recycling through things, you can use the same logs command in your history. Yep.
I like the line you picked, John. I don't know if we can get at that IP because that feels like an internal IP inside Kubernetes.
It also looks
that
like
is interesting.
The secure IP, the SSL, the 443 HTTPS.
Yep.
Not 80.
It said, I don't care that you want 80.
I don't know.
Do we have IIS or anything else running on port 80 on either the WSL side or the Windows side?
Shouldn't, no. I don't think so. Just to double check. Just want to see that it still works. Because if you broke me, Ash, I'm going to be mad.
Time to get mad.
Oh, wait, that was API.
It doesn't matter. It still should have showed up.
No, I mean...
You have to do /swagger.
Ah.
Yeah, we should be... Just for grins. Oh, and it broke everything. Yeah, we're still working. Okay.
Yeah, all of that's still working. So what we're not...
So it's only serving or looking or reading or listening 80, but this log up here led me to believe wherever that was.
Is that the top?
This one here. Yeah.
Let's take a look at the.
What about see, it's 80. Is there some config on the ingress that we just added?
Okay, so I'm not familiar with this. The ingress class you're using, add-on HTTP application routing, is that need to be changed potentially to like scroll down. It's line
43.
Line 43. We can comment that out. We'll need that when we get to AKS, but we definitely don't need it here. And I assumed that it would ignore it, but commenting it out is just even better. Good call. Oh, I see a problem. Flip back over to the YAML. 53 says the API is running on port 5000. It is not. It is running on port 80.
Yeah, and it's okay.
That wasn't our problem because we were going to the UI, not the API.
Right.
But we would have hit that eventually.
I do think we need to specify that class some way. Oh, but okay. Well, we do have something. Okay, updating Ingress.
I see that it got an IP this time. That's cool.
Yeah.
Scroll up a smidge. 192.168.65.3. What happens if we hit that URL instead of localhost?
I would assume that is my IP, right?
Not necessarily. Yeah. You're at 1.1.142.
Interesting. How the hell to get an IP on my network?
I didn't realize getting Ingress running on Docker desktop was so hard.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
We like to be complicated around here.
I mean,
You can't. Here, let me see if I can look up the cheat sheets that I have here.
All right, you got 4 minutes.
Work.
get to it. I don't know. I spent 3 days trying to figure out how to get Nginx set up just to start with, and then it only worked every third try, even after it was working. So that's all voodoo.
This machine only has
2 gigabytes of RAM.
16 gigs of memory. It is currently using 92% of that. So before we sign off, I want to know how to shut it all down.
How do you only have 16 gigs of memory?
I also chose the bare metal one. We might want to choose cloud generic. I found a post that suggests that too.
Yeah.
Where's that at?
Again, the file they're pointing at doesn't exist, but here's the article that I was reading. But let's definitely answer the question: how do we shut it all down?
Yep. I think that's the good direction to go. 3 minutes left.
Kubectl delete.
Yeah. There's that cloud-generic.yaml down at the very bottom. Except for inside the provider folder, there is no cloud-generic.yaml. There is a cloud folder, but yeah.
Awesome.
The cool thing, though, is that this article notes that they're running on WSL2, and that was helpful. Cool. So kubectl get all. And we have stuff that was spun up from the front end K8s.yaml, stuff that was spun up from the back end K8s.yaml, and stuff that was spun up from K8s-dependencies.yaml.
Yes.
So let's say kubectl delete -f K8s.yaml, and all that stuff just got deleted. Switch into the API folder, do it again. And then also delete K8s.yaml.
So is there?
Cool.
So if this was all in a namespace, is there not a way to tell the namespace to, I don't know, go to sleep, like just shut down, not remove yourself?
We could tell the deployments to scale down to 0 pods, but for those things that we just specified as pods, we couldn't really do that.
Okay.
We can just stop the Docker desktop service, and that would, shut off our cluster, but...
Hey, it all died. Yay.
Score! So we deleted all the Kubernetes stuff. Now do a Docker container list, and this will probably be empty. We were playing in container land a little bit.
Ingress.
The ingress controller. Yeah, we need to go to the delete the ingress namespace.
Yes. kubectl delete namespace / ingress - nginx.
Sorry, I missed some of that. Delete
Ingress?
namespace. Ingress.
- nginx.
Nope.
So close. All right.
Nope.
No, N.
Nginx. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
That should delete the deployment and the pod and the service and everything that was in that namespace.
Now, since he applied that namespace using a URL, when he goes to recreate all this stuff, he still needs that URL, right?
Right.
Well, I
And
mean,
so we
assuming
could've
this
done
all
that.
worked
That
and he
probably would
wanted
have been
to...
a better way to do it.
Like,
Is there any way to somehow attach that URL to the dependencies YAML so that it becomes one of the dependencies?
We can't, but we can download their YAML file and either save it as K8s ingress.yaml or similar things, or just tack it onto the end of the other YAML file.
Okay.
So Clayton, now you're starting to get into where tools like Customize or something like Helm help you to manage those sort of that next level
Right.
of dependencies, where you can say we want the back end, the front end, the ingress controller, all of these things. We're going to make a package. They'll spin all of those things up, and then now they're up and running.
Yeah, we
Cool.
still
So
haven't
all
gotten...
of our containers are gone. Docker image list.
Delete everything.
yep, that's VM.
Prune.
Now let's Docker image rm acr_url. Yeah, Docker system prune is awesome.
Goodbye.
The one thing that they added recently in Docker system prune is that it doesn't prune volumes by default.
Yep.
Is that what -a does? Does -a prune volumes too?
Nope.
No.
So then I go.
So if we do Docker system prune dash f dash volumes, then we'll also get dangling volumes. Cool. Docker image list, and I bet we still have some that we can nuke here. But all of the none will be gone.
I would have expected those to be gone as well.
They have some dependency that caused them not to.
Because it's
Does
running, I
-a
think,
delete
still.
all user-generated containers? That's cool.
Yeah.
Docker PSA.
Because there's no longer containers depending on that thing running anymore. Whereas like these Kubernetes is still running, and so Kubernetes itself is basically built on containers that are running, right? So when you Docker PS, Docker PS or whatever, where it lists containers,
Dash
Docker
A.
for Windows is basically -a is hiding those from you, so that you
Right.
don't get those things muddied. You can actually in Docker for Windows have it show you those things,
Show
and that's
system
the
containers,
show. Yep.
We'll not do that. Okay. But that's basically these, right?
Yep. That's why
Right.
those things didn't get pruned,
Okay.
because they have that dependency of currently being used.
It should hide them from the image list as well, then.
Well, you just want everything, Clayton.
I mean,
True.
Why can't you just Docker compose up and Kubernetes spins up?
right? Actually, I mean, we still until we get to the deployment, I don't think we're going to get to showing something where I actually see a benefit in using Kubernetes over Docker Compose.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. No, I agree with that.
I cleared. I saw the benefits. No, it's gone. Like the multiple instances and things like that.
Right, which because I've only used Docker really for dev. I mean, I've deployed Docker, but I'm deploying using whatever helper methods Azure has, where it actually deploys based on your compose file. Which in the background, I think that it's building whatever Kubernetes clusters and junk that it needs to, and then going. But I've only done it for dev, and for dev, I really don't need 2 instances of a thing running.
So we don't quite have it there yet, but what we're working on, and where I think there's a huge benefit of Kubernetes running locally as a part of the dev process. When we do basically code reviews, the topic branch that's being merged into master, right, has already gone into the build system and has built. And what we have is an ability to basically pull down that set of YAML files. So it's in the build producing those right YAML files that are needed. You can download those and basically just push apply, and it spins up an instance of the app and all the dependencies and things that app would need with that specific built code built by the build system and then running in Kubernetes, which is what, and there is some minor differences between running Docker Compose, because like when you talk about running behind ingresses, now you're running behind a reverse proxy as opposed to hitting it directly. So there can be some little inconsistencies in the way that things work. But the developers who are doing the code reviews have the ability to see that application running in the built state, running locally on their machine. And we don't have that working completely flawlessly just yet, but that's sort of what we're pressing towards, and it's definitely within our grasp. We have to make some refinements and whatnot, but that's one of the huge benefits I see of Kubernetes local in the development workflow. But as far as like daily developing, Docker Compose up or just using those tools are a much faster sort of spinning cycle for the development, from what I can tell right now.
Well, especially with like dev in container stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, 100%.
I completely agree. Usually for development, Docker Desktop or Docker Compose is a lot easier. For production, Kubernetes gives you a whole lot more power, scaling up, scaling down, auto healing, deploying green-blue type of environments. It gives you a whole lot more options to customize things. In development, you don't need all that horsepower, and so just having Docker Compose can be really helpful. The only downside to Docker Compose is that by default, every Docker Compose file will create a new isolated network. And so if you have multiple Docker Compose files spinning up, like, for example, in our case, all of our dependencies and then our services, maybe in 2 different Docker Compose files, it's more difficult to get them on the base network so that they can communicate together. Not impossible, it's just another line into the Docker Compose file, but it's more.
Yeah, I usually, when I'm doing something like that, I usually have, like, say with the two projects, I would build, just do a Docker build for the API, and then if I'm working on the UI, then the Docker Compose for the UI would just spin up the API image.
Right.
Instead of working on both.
Right.
Yeah, but then so for example, we have authentication services, permissions services, antivirus services. We have a number of other services that your UI and API might all utilize, because we have multiple apps that are all doing the same thing. So having those running locally under Kubernetes or something like that is sort of useful, because then your dev environments can actually hit those dev local services, and you don't have to sort of manage or worry about spinning those things up separately.
Yeah. For the highest fidelity of validating that I'm going to exactly match production, Kubernetes locally is ideal.
Yeah, excuse me, the Docker Compose file in addition to running the end-to-end testing, was another instance of should we have a UI person that wants to play with the React side and they want to run locally, then they can just run Docker Compose in the API project and then do the dev work that they want to do in the React project. But,
Right.
Yep.
but we're 10 past the hour. I think Clayton is a pumpkin. I'm getting there myself. This was a lot of fun, Rob. I learned so much. I hope others did as well. We will definitely back this up to YouTube, and I will be referencing it again and again myself. I hope others found some joy in it as well. I'm assuming we'll continue working on this next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Rob, you're certainly welcome to join us again if you're not sick of us yet and want to
I would
continue.
love to. That would be fun.
Then I'll install the Clarkio's Azure mask thing so that we're not leaking secrets, and we can maybe try to get this all deployed into Azure AKS and do all the fun stuff.
Yeah. Let me look at my calendar and double check. My user group is either Wednesday or Thursday next month, and so let me double check it. But I presume that that'll be totally fine.
Okay.
How do we commit what we've done today? We started with my branch, which may or may not be. Oh, bummer! It is exactly tomorrow. Next Wednesday is my user group. Can we do it in 2 weeks?
2 weeks will be December 23rd. Not sure what others have in store.
Ooh, I bet we have lots of
Christmassy
competing
things.
priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's avoid that week if possible, and
Save it for 2021.
We can certainly do that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Sounds good.
We started
that-
with my branch. Can we commit to my branch, or do we need to merge my branch in first?
I don't know. Let me delete that file. I don't want that out
We
there.
can definitely do this in 2021 if we need to, if we're all pumpkins, as long as we don't, delete what we did today.
Yeah, let me push this branch up and at least I pulled down your PR branch. I don't
perfect.
know if I can modify your PR branch if I push this up. I think it's a new branch. But that's fine.
Yeah, and I wasn't looking at the calendar earlier. I mean, I guess there is New Year's Eve that might be available.
That would probably be okay with me.
And we'll see what that does.
Yeah, I have no idea what the next few weeks will hold because tomorrow is our fourth child's due date. So,
Where's your sense of adventure?
right. So who knows what? Who knows what I'll be doing or where I'll be, and what will be needed.
Podcast from the hospital.
So
Yeah,
you were saying that you weren't going to be here. What I heard was we have a fifth member that can help us.
He's been playing DevOps tapes to the kid through the stomach just for the last 8 months. So,
All right, there are now Rob Rich branches on Speakermeet API and UI, I believe, if I did that correctly.
Cool.
Which contains they're out there. So that's the code from your PR with what we did tonight.
Right. And
That's
that does
probably-
mean that we skipped ahead of all of me building the K8s YAML files. We could definitely back up and build them by hand if we wanted to, or we can just plow forward and continue as if they existed.
oh, I say we plow
I find the
forward.
majority of the time when I'm building these YAML files, I copy and paste what I did last time and just change the things that I need to.
Yep.
Yeah, we tried building them by hand for several weeks in a row, and it didn't go well.
No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, I had at the time I had not the experience working with like node port, and so my experience had only been using ingress and the ingress that was built in, and I had never had to set up an ingress, so like I didn't know how we were supposed to set up an ingress. We were completely lost at the time, but I've learned some since then.
And here we thought you couldn't learn.
Well, it's still up for debate.
That's really exciting, though, that your next child is on the way.
Yep.
Congratulations.
So thank you.
All right, then I guess we will take it from there. We will check schedules and figure out what works best for everybody to continue on this path forward. Otherwise, we will be back next week for the podcast and or some deving maybe throughout the week, and just go from there. If you would, in chat, if you wanted to like and subscribe and follow and get the notifications and do all that stuff, especially if you've got an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe with that for free as part of your Amazon Prime benefits. And then you can get notified when we're on, and we'd certainly love to have you. So with that, we will do the Twitch thing and raid our buddy Chad over at Tail Learn Code. So thanks, everybody. Have a good night.